Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today I have the privilege of being in conversation with producer, engineer, mixer, drummer, and audio-visual technician. Please welcome Jack O'Connell. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on and making the time. It's good to talk to people in the audio realm, the music realm. So yeah, we'll get into it. But before we get too deep, I want to start off with, what's your story? What's the Jack O'Connell story? Where'd you grow up? And we'll start off there, and then I got a few more bullet points in there.
Sure. So born and raised in Baltimore City, grew up in Hamden, and then when I was 6, moved to Towson, and lived there till I graduated college, and my mom moved to the Eastern Shore, and I started living on my own and kind of bounced around suburbs of Towson, White Marsh, Cockeysville, Parkville, and now I'm in Canton. Nice. So yeah, I've been all over the place.
Yeah, not far from my neck of the woods. That's really cool. I've seen one of those lines that I'll probably ask later about some of the performances and some of the work you've done in the city. So that's going to be interesting. So describe like your creative background, because I see that music has been very much a big part of your life from, the single digit ages to now. So like, if you will, could you describe your creative background and if you will, what do you enjoy most about playing music?
Sure. Yeah. So I can remember loving music as far back as, forever. My parents can tell you too. I remember there was always music playing, especially when I think back, it's like They Might Be Giants and Beach Boys, and my parents had this Austin Powers soundtrack, and I remember I was just immersed in music immediately, and I enjoyed it so much, and I was always kind of interested in the behind the scenes stuff too. And then I learned about a lot of alternative music from my babysitter. Actually, it was 99.1 WHFS. That was kind of like I guess where it was kind of downhill from there with like Blink-182, Good Charlotte, Sum 41. But it's funny because before that, it was in first grade, maybe I was listening to Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and I still admire those bands. I still have this pop sensibility in a lot of my production stuff. So, I don't listen to them too much anymore. They're still, with me. But so a lot of WHFS and those bands I still listen to today. And started playing drums around 10, 11. So I think like 2004, and started taking lessons. Did that for about 8 years before I went to college. And then, started playing in bands when I was about 12. Yeah. Kind of just like a year or two after I started taking lessons, because I remember I just loved the aspect of a band, and especially a rock band. I thought that was so cool. And then I started getting into some bands. There was this place called Music Workshop off York Road, and I got into some bands there, and I'm still friends with some of those people I play with today. What else? I played in jazz band all 3 years of middle school, and that was interesting because it was a whole different ballpark, and I had to learn how to read music, and Oof. And I hit really hard. I played way too loud, and I kind of still do today. I would tell my people, like the conductor used to be like, 1 and a 2 and a jack, play soft, and it would be every single time. Played in the liturgy band in high school, played in a couple musicals in high school. That was cool. And then got into some more semi-serious bands throughout high school and college. Yeah. And in one now, and I play some cover gigs.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, I dig it. And, in many respects, when you mentioned like kind of like, you're what, like 28, 29, something like that.
29.
And yeah, so like looking at it, I was like, yeah, you've grown up in this kind of space. When you mentioned like, yeah, I was 10 and this album came out, I was like, excuse me, what?
I know. Well, yeah, and now I'm looking at, like Enema of the State turned, I think, 20.
Oh no.
I mean it's over 20, and that even that in itself is insane to me, and it scares the crap out of me. But
yeah, don't do it to yourself. Like, and it's funny, HFS was kind of like one of the things that brought me in. Like I lived right at that kind of Baltimore Towson line and that Govans area. And I was just like kind of messing with the dial one day, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And Linkin Park brought me in. That's ultimately what pulled me in, and that kind of helped develop like my love for like talk radio and some of that stuff earlier in the day with the Sports Junkies and all of that stuff. And then later in the day, it's like, oh, we're going to flip formats, and we're going to flip to more music oriented stuff. And then when the formats flipped, I was sitting there listening. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And I kind of shifted to K-Rock, and I was, doing that for a while. So I'm very much in those sensibilities. And yeah. So and as a music lover, like I'm a person that enjoys music. I dig music. I'm doing a project that's coming up soon, and the organizers asked me, they was like, would you be interested in like curating like a list of songs that you like? I was like, look, I got some stuff. Now. I think there's certain skills, like obviously training's a piece of it. Obviously school and repetition, what is it, the 10,000 hours, or I'm hearing a new one that it's really probably 10 years, really. That's kind of the thing. What skills, and I'm looking for something that falls out of that sort of natural, hey, I drummed here for a while, or I did that, I hung in bands, but something that you gained that makes you feel like you're really effective as a musician or as a music person, because you're more than just a musician, you're a music person.
Yeah, I'd say dealing with people is a big thing. I just from being in bands at such an early age, learning how to interact with musicians, not only in a musical standpoint, but in emotional standpoint, and being their friend, and understanding people. It really, it's cliche, but I would say a band really is like a marriage, and you need to know those person's, strengths and weaknesses, and what pushes their buttons and what they enjoy. And I've been working at Towson University for close to 10 years now, since I was a student, and a lot of that is dealing with clients. And I think even that just gives me even that much more experience with that. And then, yeah, I mean, as far as a musical standpoint, just practicing with music that you love and just listening to tons of music. It sounds so simple, but even from a production standpoint or a mixing standpoint, the more you listen to music, the more I feel inspired to keep creating, but also I get motivated to, make a record that sounds like what I love. How can I take my material to the next level and be like this band or be like this producer? So that is really huge. And just, I've learned to just keep staying in time, learning how to play with a click track and being, just keeping a solid tempo, because that's huge with the studio. And then also knowing when to improvise. That's another thing with doing the cover gig stuff I've been doing more recently in Fells Point. A lot of the set lists that I take that back. They're not really any set lists. I'm just throwing songs, and it's important to have an open mind and one from the get-go know a bunch of songs, like all the classics, but also know how to improvise and put your own spin on things and be your own musician and not have it be this, stale, kind of just going right off of the recording. Because if someone wants to listen to the recording, they'll listen to the recording. Yeah, I like to put my own spin on things, and I'm always flattered when people ask me to play on their stuff, because I'm like, well, like any drummer can like play that same beat, but everyone really does have different ways of doing things, and it's but yeah, that's what makes music so fun for me.
Yeah, and that actually gave me like this sort of like secondary like question with that of so what do you recently, right? What is something that you found really tricky in terms of the improvisation there? Like, because I dig that notion of going to see music live, right? And I know that's something that the way that we do it has changed considerably over the last few years. And I remember, I think it was maybe 2019 or the tail end of 2018. And I went to see with my girl. I went to see Toro Iwa in DC, and I was just like, "This is great!" And he was debuting a new album and all of that stuff. And it's this one track on there, "Who Am I?" And I was like, "This is amazing!" And the album comes out around the time of my birthday. So I'm like, "Yeah, this is gonna be great." I get up, have it loaded to Spotify, and I'm like, "Let's go!" I get in there, and he changed the mix. I was like, "Oh, this sounds different." I was like, yeah, the lyrics are great. The live version was better. So I had that live experience as my reference point for the first time I've heard that song. So that's my thinking then, like live music. So definitely when someone adds a little stank to it, something different, I dig that. And so for you, when you're doing something live, when you're improvising, when you're working on a tune, because you said you're throwing songs at times, what was something that comes to mind? I was like, this was a complicated improv. We were trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So usually if, the musician will turn around to me, I do a lot of duos. They'll turn around and say, "Do you know this song?" And a lot of times I'll just lie and say I do, and they'll just play it. And even if I say no, we'll do it anyway. I'll usually say like, give me like 4 bars, and then I'll come in afterward just so I get like the general groove. But a lot of the stuff that, especially the bar tunes, is essentially kind of the same groove, and if I get a little leeway, like I said, I can get into it. The trickiest stuff is when the songs have a lot of kind of parts to it, when it's not just kind of like a straight thing, or, like I would say when someone asks me to play "Message in a Bottle" by The Police, it's always different. And Stuart Copeland didn't even play that song the same way every time in the studio. And he is such a better drummer than me anyway, but I always feel I get this kind of feeling that, I'm not going to do this song justice. I'm going to kind of fail this song. You know what I mean? But in the bar context, no one cares. You're really just there to have a good time. But also you have to know who you're playing with, because that will change the game as well. I play with several different people, and if musician A plays "Message in a Bottle," it will definitely be different than the way musician B plays it. Now it's going to have the same essence, of course, but I've found over the years that a lot of people don't play the song exactly like the recording, and put their own spin, which I can respect. But you also have to, at the same time, you have to be cognizant that I'm learning the song sometimes on the fly, and if I did have an opportunity to learn the song, I learned it from the recording. We didn't have rehearsal.
Gotcha.
It's very rare that I have any sort of rehearsal with a cover band. With my original bands, that's a different story, and writing music, of course. But
yeah, and we'll talk about that a bit. I think this one is kind of like pre-rapid fire, but I want to get more of a brief answer on this one because I just added it, so I just want to get something that's brief on it. So peeling back the onion a little bit, as a creative and working with creatives, musicians, artists, all of that good stuff, and spending a long time, a big chunk of your life, and again, I'm kind of mesmerized at the age thing. What like secret or trait do most creative people share? Like, what is that thing? Is it courage? Is it fear? Is it, the desire to create, I guess? What is that trait for you if you were to peel the onion back and it's like, here's the dirty little secret about creatives?
It's funny, and this isn't to rip on all singers, songwriters, but I truly believe that anyone super creative, or especially singer-songwriters, there's like some screw loose in their head. Like I found they can write. I've worked with some people, they can write some of the best songs I've ever heard, but there's some sort of personality thing going on that they're not easy to work with, or they're like keeping themselves from being able to take that next step creatively. And but it kind of goes back to like what I said about dealing with people. Yeah. You need to just know how to get through to them and get the most out of them and the best out of them. And that's really, what I do as a producer.
Yeah.
Also, when back in the day when I was playing in original bands, it was the same kind of thing. You got to be friends with the people you're working with. And then if you can't be, then there are other people that would probably will respect you more for what you do and the ideas you have to bring to the table, and you'll work with them. But it's usually I get along with most musicians. It just kind of depends on what wavelengths we're on, what kind of music we're interested in, what our philosophies are with production, and how things sound. So
where's that sort of common ground at? And, in me doing this, you can imagine that I'm bringing in various guests, doing research, all of that different stuff. It's definitely similar. And there's probably about a handful of just they didn't work out. It's rare that I do a free conversation. We're improvising right now, if you think about it, and it's rare that I say, hey, let's have a pre-talk. No, everybody's busy. Here's the questions. You've got any questions? Let's talk about it. But really, it's getting into it, and generally the conversations go well. And I had one example with a guest that he wanted to chat beforehand. And I'm glad we did, because he was a dick. And I was like, oh, I'm glad this didn't turn into a podcast. It's just would have wasted both of our time. Yeah. And, it's a few people that they just, came into it because there's, it's probably about 10 episodes that were recorded that was just like, I can't use. And it's the nature of, people just not taking it serious. People just like preoccupied with something else. And they're into it, but I think they're into it the idea of I want to have my story out there, but me, in being the producer, being the editor, being the curator, I'm trying to be considerate of this doesn't make you look good. This actually makes you look bad. So knowing what comes out in that final wash, but again, it's knowing that people are sensitive. So if I tell someone like, yo, this sucked, we should probably do this again. Had to be mindful of that, but really that's the feeling, it's like, this didn't go well. We should do this again. So yeah, that's something like definitely when you're doing things that feel improvisational, when you're doing things that you're working in many pockets, like I said, you're a music person, you're more than the musician. Everything is in that title. And that's the way I kind of look at what I'm doing. I'm facilitating the storytelling. I'm not doing the storytelling, I'm facilitating it. And if it makes a person come out not great, it's like, trying to be able to get past it and get into a place where a person can trust you, like with sharing their story for one. Because sometimes, it's like, the reason I started doing this artwork is because a relative passed. I was like, that's a really emotional story. Thank you for sharing that. I want to do it justice.
Mm-hmm.
In the ultimate edit. Yeah.
I think it's important to, and that's why I'm really into doing pre-production before I start working on records, is just to kind of learn what the artist's vision is and to see if I truly think that I can help them get there, and if our philosophies kind of match. Because sometimes, just I'll have to say, I don't think I'm the best person for the job, and I wish you all the best, but it just from our conversations and just what I've gathered, I think something else should happen. So I've learned that over the years. It's not always been the case. Sometimes I'll just go into a project and not, oh, cool, music, I'm gonna make music. But it really is more than just writing songs and pressing record and shooting them out on Spotify. Like, it's really
it's an investment of time, of energy, of when you're working hours upon hours on a thing, like, this was a light week for me this week. It's like only 5 interviews I was doing, but in it's like, I would tell people, like, it's probably like 2 to 3 hours put into the production cycle for one podcast. Mm-hmm. So the moment when someone, and I would imagine the same thing applies from the studio standpoint, right? Where someone just doesn't show up and you're like, I'm booked, everything is ready to go. And like, I'm not going to get that 3 hours back. So, and it's like, let's pivot, if we need to, but just kind of understand like what goes in it. It's not just like, we're recording this. I don't send out unedited podcasts. You know what I mean? Like, Let's levelate this a little bit. And even today, I put out a second episode and the guest hit me like yesterday. There's a part in there when I talk about this thing. Can you just remove it? It's like, sure. And me and him did this interview like a month ago. And I was like, yeah, you sat on that one for a while, bro, didn't you? And that's just what it is. But I think having that leeway and that sort of like flexibility to do that sort of thing. So I want to talk about like all the venues, because that's what you've done. All the venues you've worked in, you've played in all the venues, virtually all the venues. So if you will, describe your first gig, like one that's like, yeah, this one sticks out. And I know, you were describing like what, 12, I believe was, when you first started playing in the bands and what have you, but describe your first gig and something that was a very memorable gig. It may have been something weird happened. It may have been like, yo, this was the gig where they threw a pizza at the drummer. And I was like, whoa, no. And the drummer was me.
Yeah. Luckily that hasn't happened yet. I mean, I'll preface, it's a little exaggeration. I don't think I've played every single venue in Baltimore, but all the big ones, that Sound Stage, Ram's Head, I mean, the list goes on, but any that just a general music lover would know around Baltimore, I've played. But honestly, probably around 2005, I want to say, was my first gig. It was probably the Record Theater in Towson with one of the bands I was in at the music workshop. I was in a bunch of different bands, but I think we were called Ostracize, and I'm still friends with most of those guys that was in the band. I don't think we were very good, or at least up to the standards that I have now. I'm sure you could find some videos somewhere and cringe along, but no, I remember being really excited though, because I grew up going to the Record Theater, watching bands I loved, and it was so weird just standing on that stage. I thought it was like off limits to me. It was really weird. Like, I thought you like had to be famous to stand on the stage. Like, I was so immature about the whole thing. I didn't understand any of it. I just knew, okay, they're putting a drum kit up there for me. I'm just gonna play the crap out of it and do my thing. But I'll never forget it. It was that was amazing. And then honestly, the show that sticks out the most is my former band, The Chance, opened for the band Tonight Alive. They were a pretty big band at the time. They're from Australia. They were a pop punk alternative band. And it's funny. I remember the day I got the email that we were playing. I was in sociology class at Towson, and I remember just being like, yes, like audibly in the whole class. I got the email. I'm just like, dicking around on my computer. And I get the email, and yeah, we got to open for Tonight Alive. It was so awesome. It was a packed house. And funny enough, the band Echo Smith, who's arguably bigger than Tonight Alive now, they were the first band on the bill. Were just starting out. They have that Cool Kids song. I don't know if you know them, but yeah, so they played. And yes, that was Autobar in like, I think 2013, I want to say, like in the fall. And that was surreal. They were so nice, and yeah, we had so much fun. But we were nervous though. We were nervous as hell because there's a line out the door. And I remember walking past the line. Oh, that's the drummer of the Chance. My friend Chad. Oh, that's the guitar player Chance. Like we're like, what? But it's funny to think back now.
Yeah, I think I still get caught on it. I still get even now I get the nerves in going on stage just to do my thing. And ultimately I try to bring it back to like, really, what am I doing? I'm just talking to people who are more talented than me. That's really what it is. Right. But I remember it was one year I was doing a Baltimore podcast festival, and I'm on there, and it's a group, and I've never done like a festival. I'm like, okay, what is this going to be about? And I'm still friends with the podcasters that went on after me and my ex co-host. And I just remember I got starstruck with this one thing. The bartender at what was it? Wind Up Space. That just to set the stage. It was such a weird thing. He was like, the bartender was like, "Oh, you guys drink for free. You guys are the talent." I was like, "The talent?" I was like, "Oh, this is so new for me." And and I had like a double shot of whiskey. I forgot everything I was supposed to say before getting on the stage. I was like, "Oh no, yeah. I'm doing the intro. Oh no, I got nothing."
Yeah, yeah. No, it's always crazy being on stage for the first time. But then especially when you start interacting with the audience, it starts to get more comforting, I think. And yeah, and I've met a lot of I've been blessed to I've been able to meet a lot of my idols over the years, and they really are just people, and nice. I've always had good interactions, so
that's dope. So I want to bring these two together. I want to talk about tell us about O'Connell Sound. Let's just talk about it.
Sure. Yeah. So that's my studio, and really, anything musically involving me. And I started saving up for recording gear in high school. Just like working at a coffee shop, and saved up for gear, and I was always interested in behind the scenes stuff with music, so I started reading more into productions of music I liked, and started learning Pro Tools in college. That was what they taught us, and I got some hands-on studio experience on a console, and had a big live room at the Center for the Arts, and yeah, I just realized I loved just taking songs and bringing them to life. So then when I graduated college, I started taking it a little more seriously, and I started recording my friends' music, and then it developed into more artists. And one thing I realized I really enjoy is helping singer-songwriters help their vision come to life. A lot of times they'll come to me, and they'll be able to sing and play guitar and even bass on the record, but they need a drummer.
Yeah.
So I'll wind up playing drums on their record, but it also will help me facilitate, the production of it. And it helps me, start from scratch, make a song skeleton and get a first draft of it. And then, we'll track drums and go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I do production, mixing, engineering, and session drumming on most of my productions. I've been handing off mixing a little bit to some people that I trust, but yeah, and yeah, just try to make a cool environment for the artist and just make them excited about what they're working on and want to, push themselves and put out cool music. And yeah,
it's fantastic. So I want to ask about collaborating. I believe you're in a band with your brother. Was that Backyard Games? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm in a band with my brother called Backyard Games, and we it's a long story, but basically there was a period in time when I was living with my mom and my brother, and my brother and I kind of always had somewhat of a similar interest in music, but there was a point in time where my brother Danny picked up a guitar and just started writing songs. In particular, I remember Modern Baseball was a band that I liked that Danny got into, and he started writing these songs, and they were just super quirky, but I thought they were brilliant and just super, super catchy. And because I was learning recording at the same time, I would just demo them out, his songs, and we got excited about them. So eventually we decided, okay, here's a body of songs that we're both really stoked on, so let's record them. So we have like a 17 song album that I'm constantly working on. Unfortunately, with my full-time job and other artists I'm working with, it's not always the first priority. But yeah, it's been a really interesting thing, being with my brother, and we butt heads a lot. It's not always we don't always see eye to eye. My brother is the main songwriter, but I'm the one kind of producing everything. So especially when Danny lives in Colorado, so there's this distance. And when we worked on the record, he came in and recorded all the vocals and all the acoustic guitar and kind of set the stage. But then it was kind of like, okay, I'm moving, you can have free reign and finish everything. So actually, the quarantine was one of the reasons why I got so much work done from it, because I wound up outsourcing musicians, and I made this big Excel spreadsheet of like notes for each musician, and I sent them out. These guys in Portugal, that's a whole other story. But yeah, I'm a part of this thing called Now the Mix, and I met these guys in Portugal, and they're awesome musicians. So bass and guitar and a bunch of editing, and now mixing are all outsourced.
Nice.
Shout out to Tiago Carvalho, who's basically an assistant for me now. He's such an awesome friend and mentor to me. But he's been a huge part of the Backyard Games music in particular, getting that done. But yeah, so we started playing live shows once we got our first song out, which was last year, and its reactions have been awesome. So much better than I thought they would be. I'm actually playing my first show with him in a while next week in New York City. So
that's great. And yeah, we're a big fan of brothers on this podcast. I have a younger brother. He's like my biggest fan in podcasting. So shout out to Rudy. Yeah.
So,
So this is the last real question I have, and then I got some rapid fire questions for you.
sure.
And in this one, I had to, really think about it because I used to just ask it as, when is creative work ready to share? But I want to preface it a little bit. I think music has a quick cycle. There's always something dropping. We have, oh, this is the new releases that are coming out on Fridays. And it feels more like pushing out content versus making art. When, and from your vantage point, when do you feel like, creative work is ready to share? Not necessarily it's finished, like, hey, we've mastered this, everything is good. But from an emotional standpoint, from a creative sensibility, when is creative work ready to share?
So as soon as I'm ready to share something I've been working on with someone, I believe it's the best I can possibly make it, I think it's ready to share. Now, for someone like me, I can be my own roadblock a lot of times because of my insane attention to detail that my friends will tell you, and anyone that's worked with me will tell you. But so I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, but I don't want to put anything out that I'm not 100%, emotionally fulfilled by, and know that others will enjoy listening to it. But really, I think it's as simple as that. If I'm excited about it, it's ready to go, and it's sounding like it should. Like it should. If I'm working on something and I listen to it and I think it's not, the instrumentation isn't supporting each other, or just the song itself isn't working, then I'll keep at it, I don't, unless I have a hard deadline or something. Luckily I haven't really worked with signed bands or anything where I have those kind of deadlines, but I'll work as hard on it until it's right.
I could dig it.
Yeah.
So I want to move to the rapid fire portion of the podcast. It's gonna get ridiculous. It's gonna get goofy. I'm just letting you know.
I'll try not to like ramble on. You'll have to cut me off.
Oh, these are as brief as possible.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes they're just one word answers. Sometimes it's like, this is what it is. All right. So I got 5 of them for you. First one. What's that one album that you could listen to for the rest of your life? I was going to make it a song, but I think album is a little bit more prudent.
Easy answers, Enema of the State by Blink-182. Without that album, I don't know if I would have even started playing drums or gotten into music as deeply as I am now.
Nice. And I'm glad that I kind of went with that question, because I had, what was your favorite Blink-182 album? And I was like, no, it's now been shifted to this question. So we're good.
That's way too hard, but yeah.
What is your favorite drink? You mentioned coffee, musicians and nightlife and all of that has a different vibe as well. So, give us the rundown.
Oh man. I'm super simple. I mean, honestly, if I could pick, margarita, but I'm not going to be like chugging margaritas on stage. That's usually just
very festive,
like a little vodka soda with a lime. But if I'm out and about, margarita for sure. You give me a margarita and like some chips and guac, I'm happy all day. I'll stay there all day.
That's great. What is your favorite post-gig activity? Like, some of us need that come down. Some of us like, I'm just going to hang out for a little while. I'm going to definitely grab something to eat. What is that for you? What is that post-gig activity for you?
So a lot of my gigs are super late at night. This is a bad habit I've tried to get out of, but there really is nothing like winding down. I'll probably ice my arms a little bit or my hands, and I'll get Royal Farms and I'll sit down and watch like some South Park or something. Like, that's how lame I am. If I'm playing with a friend, or something, we'll hang out after the show. But honestly, a lot of times the bar is closed after the gig, so we can't just chill afterward. But or like if it's with my brother, we'll hang with his friends or something. But yeah, that's that's it.
I mean, as long as you're getting like the chicken tendies from the Royal Farms, then we're good.
Man. Chicken tenders and fries
Always
all day. Nice 2 a.m. snack. Gotta love it.
I have one that's really ridiculous. I'm gonna save for the last one. So, what is your favorite movie genre?
My father would say screwball comedies. He always gets mad at me. I'll be like, hey, Dad, you want to watch a movie? He'll be like, no, Jackie, I don't want to. No, it's not a screwball comedy. Not a screwball comedy. So that's honestly, that's probably it. I do love a good like psychological thriller, though. Yep. Those are awesome. But like Adam Sandler was my first.
I got it. That's nice. Now, this is the last one. This is so ridiculous, but as I kind of touched on earlier, some of the bands you mentioned earlier, as far as inspiration, I'm on the same page. HFS, the whole thing, K-Rock, the whole thing. I pay attention to minutia when it comes to music. Could you, since you're a drummer, could you describe the drummer face? And I think you know what I'm talking about.
The drummer face, yeah. I've been told I make a lot of weird faces. The drummer face is something that all drummers need to look past, because if you think about it, you get super self-conscious. You start thinking about it, and you'll screw up the gig. But drummer face is anything that gives you that extra like 5%, I guess, to like just lay in to the kit. And to me, like I've been told. People tell me that I look like I want to actually like murder my drum set sometimes when I play. I like smile a lot and just do like just a mean mug kind of thing.
That's amazing.
But drummer faces are weird. But you can't be ashamed of it. Everyone's got their own. And honestly, like I would rather have a drummer face and like look excited when I'm playing than just be like just be still the whole time. Like no one, I've always say like I can be watching like the shittiest band on stage. If they're having a good time, who am I to judge? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if they're doing their thing and they're enjoying themselves, then all the power to them. That's kind of my same philosophy with the drumming face and being excited when you're on stage. So
I dig it. And the last thing I'll say with that, I agree 100%. And I just remember going to maybe a convention. I think it was a comic convention, and I just remember being there. And initially, I wanted to be too cool for it. I was like, "Hey man, I don't know about all this," and then I just see people really enjoying the thing that they enjoy. And I was like, that's the thing. And it's like, and when you're going for it and you're in it, it was like a dude he was in a full cosplay as Blade. And he really was he had the gun, he had the sword, he did his pose, he had the fangs. I was like, that guy's going for it. I respect it. And I think that's the same thing. It's like, you're performing. Just be into the thing that you're doing. Have a good time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I play Santeria by Sublime like every single night. I play the bar gig. And yeah, is it my favorite song to play? No, but I'm gonna look excited and I'm gonna get people excited as well. And yeah, even if I'm not excited and I see someone else excited, then that's all that matters to me,
Nice. So with that, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast, and I want to invite and encourage you to tell the fine folks where to check you out on social media, website, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So my studio, O'Connell Sound, is at www.o'connellsound.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Jack on Drums and at O'Connell Sound. My band Backyard Games is on Instagram as well at Backyard Games Music. And we have a link tree as well, just linktree/Backyard Games. And yeah, I'm putting out a lot more music with Backyard Games, as well as I've been working with my friend Mikey, who goes by the name Thong DeLong on Twitch.
That's nice.
We're putting out some new covers. And yeah, got a bunch new projects I'm producing that I'm really excited about, that just stay tuned for. But yeah, follow me at Jack on Drums, and that should be, where you'll find everything about me. So,
well, there you have it, folks. Again, I want to thank Jack O'Connell for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, music in and around your neck of the woods. You just have to look for it.